Hello, and welcome back to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Herlock. It's the tail end of July, and we've got a great show lined up for you today. We've got 2 separate interviews with 3 different people. First, we're going to talk to Fritz and Sarah Mitchell from King's Agriseeds here in Pennsylvania. They've got a field day coming up in mid-August. We're going to hear about that, but we're also going to talk about the work they're doing with variety trials and planting techniques. Then I'm going to talk to Segue Fischlin. She is a builder in the Puget Sound area of Washington State, and she is hosting a Hempcrete workshop in early September. We'll talk about that event, but really the main thrust of this conversation is about the language we use when we talk about industrial hemp. But first, a quick sponsor break and a few nuggets of hemp news. This episode is brought to you in part by IND Hemp in Fort Benton, Montana, where their mission is to provide innovative agricultural products and services to connect American farmers with the pioneers and businesses that see hemp as a way to bring real and lasting change to our communities and planet. IND Hemp. Alright, so just a few nuggets of hemp news for the last week of July 2022. Yesterday, there was a congressional hearing. It was called an examination of the USDA hemp production program. I just got the audio for this hearing just this morning, so on next week's show, I'm going to dig in a little more on that. But I will put the link to a video of the hearing on the show page at lancasterfarming.com. This next story is on petfoodprocessing.net. The headline says, AAFCO details new webinar on the usage of hemp. And the story says that the Association of American Feed Control's officials, the AAFCO, and the National Industrial Hemp Council of America, the NIHC, will be hosting a webinar on August 9th. The webinar entitled, Why Isn't Hemp in Animal Feed? A national discussion on overcoming challenges and gaining approval. It will cover hemp and its inclusion in animal feed and pet foods. The free webinar will cover special hemp topics in relation to animal feed, including regulatory hurdles and other challenges, solutions, and best practices. The webinar is divided into 3 parts. There's a scientific research and data section, and then ingredient review and approval, and then interests and concerns everyone is facing. So again, that's August 9th. It's with the National American Feed Control's officials, the AAFCO, and the National Industrial Hemp Council of America. That's going to be fascinating, and we should all listen in on that webinar. And finally, one bit of news from Pennsylvania. This is in the Newcastle News, and it's about the Project PA Hemp Home. You know about that, where they renovated a residential house using industrial hemp. And so yesterday, Pennsylvania Ag Secretary Russell Redding was joined by State Senator Elder Vogel. They all met there with the folks from Don Services talking about the potential of industrial hemp. And they talked about how Don Processing LLC, a startup entity in the Don group of companies, is planning an investment in an industrial hemp production hub in western Pennsylvania. The hub is planned to include both a decortication facility and a hemp wood production facility. I'll put links to these stories on the show page for the episode at lancasterfarming.com. Okay, so just one more thing before we get into our interviews. Last week I mentioned the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act. That's the Congressional Democrats' plan to federally legalize cannabis. I had hoped to talk to one of my hemp legal specialists, but all of my lawyer contacts were busy this past week. But I do have an interview scheduled for early next week, so we will find out what federal legalization will mean for the hemp industry. All right, let's get on with the show. Fritz and Sarah Mitchell from King's Agriseeds. Welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you both doing today?
I'm doing well, Eric.
Thank you very much. We're doing great.
Yeah, good. It's summer of 2022, and you've got some hemp in the ground there over in Lancaster County, and you've got a field day coming up in just a few weeks. So I mentioned it on the show last week, but I thought it would be sort of a great opportunity to touch base and give our listeners a little more information about it. And then I thought we would sort of get into some of the work that you're doing in the hemp space, apart from the field day. So let's first talk about that field day. It's August 16th and 17th. Tim, do you want to go or Sarah?
Sarah, why don't you take it?
Well, Eric, we've got 9 different varieties. They're primarily grain and fiber varieties from 3 different companies. That would be Verve, who is a merged company with Hemp Genetics International and Tritium 3. They're both out of Canada. And International Hemp, which is based in Colorado. We've got a new company represented this year, and that's New West Genetics, also from Colorado.
Sure.
So all these varieties are from different latitudes. So it's been very interesting to see their differences. We've got a nice variety.
Okay, and those are in the ground at the farm in Christiana, and people can come see those in a few weeks.
Yes, August 16th and 17th, we're going to do 2 sessions from 9 until 11 in the morning. Both days will be, as far as seeing the plant material, that's going to be the same, but the difference will be in the people who come. And it's going to be just a rich opportunity to talk with breeders all the way through our end users. It's going to be really a lot of fun.
Okay, so you'll have some farmers there as well as the breeders.
I would love to have farmers there. And the reason for that is we need to know as farmers what we're trying to produce. Is that the right thing for the end market? So that's the key thing is, are we harvesting the proper way? Are we growing the right varieties? And that's really important to talk to the end user as well as the breeders to find out if the qualities match.
Sure. Okay. And do people need to register first, or can you just show up?
It would be great to register. I would like to know who's coming, and people can get in touch with me either by email or calling the office. And we'll keep a track of who's registered. It's pretty casual. It will be a very casual thing, but the opportunity to network will be very good. It will be.
Okay. Is there any website where people can go and learn more about it? Is it on the kingsagriseeds.com page?
Yes, it is on it's on our website.
All right, great. I'll put that up on the show page for this episode on lancasterfarming.com. And I'm guessing it's going to be super hot out. It's summertime in Pennsylvania. Will you have any kind of refreshments for the people? Anything like that?
Yeah, we'll have, it's going to be hot. It is going to be hot, most likely. So yeah, we'll have some refreshments, maybe some watermelon, and people will be able to walk. Actually, the hemp is so tall, you can find some shade in the hemp. So
okay. And this was sort of planned in conjunction with the folks at Penn State's research farm, right? Because they've got a hemp walk that evening on the evening of the 16th.
Right. We love to work with Penn State, and Alyssa Collins and her crew are really good. So they're having a Twilight meeting at 6:00, I believe, and they have different varieties. So I do want to put it in a plug. If you come to our field day, and then we may have some activities planned for the afternoon, or do what you like in Great Lancaster County, and then head over to Penn State to see what they've got going on over there for the evening. It would be a double dip if you come on the 16th or arrive on the 16th and stay over for the 17th. And people are coming from all over the Northeast and out of state.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah. So it'll be definitely worth everyone's while to get there and to go to both events. Good. Okay, well, let's talk about what sort of maybe how King's got involved in hemp in the first place, and then let's talk about the work you've been doing since you got into it.
Yes, Eric, I will discuss that. So I've always been interested in medical plants. I actually have a master's degree in weed science and with an emphasis on weed ecology. We talked about that type of thing. And then 2018, the summer of 2018, Penn State University had a field day at the Landisville Research Station. And Dr. Greg Roth, who I've known for years, was presenting, and I asked him questions, and somebody happened to take a picture of me standing in the field, and it showed up on the Lancaster Farming front page that day. So I
might have been me.
I was maybe a little bit committed at that point. But seriously, I had a sincere interest And that was on the grain side and the fiber side. And so in the year 2019, we did a test trial with HGI, which is now merged into Verb. And we learned some interesting things. Not only did we plant strips of genetics, but we had different management techniques within it. And most of the field was a train wreck. It was very weedy. But there was a certain management technique that we did that just gave us beautiful results. Now, I didn't want to say that this is the way it is with one test plot, one location, 1 year. So I wanted to follow up on it. So we were selling hemp. People knew that we were selling hemp, and that was exciting. But in the year 2019, everybody wanted CBD. So the following year, we offered CBD as everybody wanted it. So we got some great genetics in, and then we started doing research on how do you grow the CBD materials, both photoperiod sensitive and the day neutrals. And autoflower is what most people call day neutral in the hemp space. So then we kind of did a little bit of that. We did 2 years of research on that, I believe, and then we did a little bit of grain overlap with it, and that was, you got to be careful on that. And then this year we got to focus on fiber and grain by doing crops before to set things up, what I call fore-crops, and then planting nurse crops with the crop as well. Because weeds within your hemp is pretty brutal, and they can come rather rapidly. So we're working on that and some other cultural techniques.
Okay. So can you talk about some of the fore crops that you put in? Is that like maybe like you would seed the field with a cover crop months beforehand? Is that what you're talking about?
That is correct, Eric. So what we did, let's see, make sure I get my years right. 2019, no, it would have been, the fall of 2020. We set up a trial where we planted 5 different fore crops planted, let's see, Sarah, help me out here. Was that the end of August, I believe?
Right.
Tail end of August. And then we planted 5 more different things mid-October, well, October 7th or 8th, something like that. And then we planted 5 crops, different cover crops in March, late March of 2021. And then we did a do nothing. And we planted autoflower CBD in 30-inch rows across these plots. We also happened to do tobacco across these plots as well. And it was fascinating as we had certain cover crops or fore crops did extremely set up say the hemp very well, but the tobacco looked awful, or vice versa. So we discovered at that point, wow, we really got something going here. And by the way, I did a tiny bit of this type of research in 2019, where we did it with tobacco and a couple plants of photoperiod sensitive products, but there weren't many plants. But I saw differences then, so that's why I wanted to expand upon it.
Okay. And maybe just for listeners' sake, the reason you were growing tobacco, you're not just a hemp company. You source seeds for all sorts of different crops, and tobacco is a big crop here in Pennsylvania.
Yes, and so we don't sell the tobacco seed, but we sell the cover crops or the fore crops.
Oh, I see. Okay.
To set it up. So we're trying to learn how to manage these different crops.
Okay, and that's sort of one of the things that sets you apart, that you do all of this research on your research farm, then you can share that knowledge with your customers.
That is correct. We actually like to make the mistakes on our farm first, because you learn more from your mistakes than you do by doing things correct. And so we have some years of experience under our belt now that we're getting it figured out.
Good.
Yeah, really what we're finding is that field history matters. And if you know how that history matters, then you can manipulate it in order to grow the crop correctly. And you can save money at the same time. Really, this year especially, we've kind of found out what not to do in some areas. And also we're kind of narrowing down the options of what really works for hemp. And we think it's going to matter whether you grow CBD or whether you're growing industrial. So, and that's what'll be on display at the field day. So these 5 things that we planted this year are really helping us narrow down the options so that when we are deciding to grow a cover crop over the winter, we might as well choose one that benefits the crop,
Sure.
whether you're growing corn, tobacco, or hemp. And each one of those different crops is different. It has a different history, that a preference, I will say. It has a preference of who it comes after.
Right. Okay. Are you seeing fewer farmers interested in CBD these days? Is it sort of shifting to fiber and grain?
Yes, but you know what? People are still interested in growing CBD. It has tapered off. We are just seeing a big uptick, though, in the grain and fiber side of things. So what's really interesting is that now the processors are beginning to come online in a more serious way. We're expecting that people should be practicing in order that in 2023, we've got a harvestable crop that can actually deliver something to a final end user in Pennsylvania or New York or Virginia or Maryland.
Good. That's good to hear. Yeah, I'm hopeful that the fiber and grain acreage is increasing. Is there anything else you wanted to say about those varieties? And you mentioned New West Genetics and International Hemp, and that's who's supplying your seeds?
Yes, and also Verve, who was formerly HGI, Hemp Genetics International. We've been working with HGI since 2019, and what's cool is that Hemp Genetics International, primarily those varieties are for grain, and they are shorter. So what I've learned recently is that people may not have to get any kind of new equipment in order to harvest a grain crop that's only 3 to 5 feet tall. And actually, International or Verve, we have a beautiful new variety called Indigo, and it's called Indigo because the buds are actually purple. They're just lovely, and that actually has an uptick in CBD, where industrial hemp usually has pretty minimal percentage of CBD, like less than 2%. And I know it's not comparable to a straight CBD variety, but this has 3 to 5%. So it actually doubles or triples the amount of CBD in a grain and fiber crop. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so if people are like dual cropping or cropping, they could get some.
Potentially. So we've got that one. And then International Hemp, we've been working with them for several years too. Their varieties are actually, we brought them on because their varieties are taller. So we've got some nice 10-footers there with Bio Labreski, and their other variety, Hinola, is quite a bit shorter, but we did have a lot of demand for much taller hemp varieties. And then we're checking out New West Genetics because they're at our same latitude. And so those varieties are on display too.
All right. So what else should we talk about? What else do you think our listeners should know about King's Agriseeds? I know that some of my listeners buy seeds from you. I know there's Ray up in Alaska and Catherine down in Maryland, and I'm sure there's a few others who know all about your great work. I know Catherine, hemp farmer in Garrett County, Maryland. She's been buying seeds from you for other crops for years and years, and it's great that you've been able to supply her with some hemp seeds too. So yeah.
I think probably the key thing is with King's Agriseeds is we are an agricultural seed company. And Tim, how long have we been in business?
Since 1993.
And so we don't mess around with fooling around. And I tell each beginning farmer, it's too hard to build a relationship like this. I want to work with people to help them grow a successful crop. The end user, I'm trying my best to link that together, but in the meanwhile, we need to learn how to grow this crop, and that's where we come in.
Good. And so I will mention that, Sarah, you're the industrial hemp specialist, and Tim, you are the president and owner at King's Agriseeds. I don't know if we mentioned that in the beginning, but now everybody knows.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I will thank you for your support, because you have been supporting our podcast over the past few years. So it's great to connect with you here and share more about what you're doing with our audience.
There's one more thing. Tim, would you talk about the nurse crops? We didn't mention that.
Oh, okay. So nurse crops for hemp, it actually goes back to the year 2019 was the first thing I tried working with hemp, because we didn't have a year to prepare or a half year to prepare. So it was the nurse crop concept that actually gave me the exciting results. Some nurse crops one in particular was really good, and some were not so good, and doing nothing was worse.
Can you explain the concept of nurse crop? I'm sorry to cut you off, but I don't understand what you mean by nurse crop.
Okay, so a nurse crop is a crop that is seeded at the same time as your hemp crop, for example. So it's designed to nurse it along during the emergence and establishment stage of the crop. And the goal with a nurse crop is that eventually it just kind of disappears. In the case of growing other crops, maybe you harvest a nurse crop. With hemp, we're not doing that. So we use a nurse crop. We'll actually plant hemp. We'll plant the nurse crop first because they're typically planted deeper. And so we'll plant that going one direction. And then to get it off the rows, we'll plant the hemp crop at an angle. In the case of our research farm, plots are small, so it's perpendicular. So you go across the field. Hemp's planted at about 1/2 inch deep. So we're planting above the nurse crop, so we're not messing things up for anything. And then the two come up together. And so the nurse crop helps control the weeds, and it also encourages that hemp to grow a little taller, more erect.
Right. Can you talk about what crops you're using as nurse crops?
Right now, we're focused mostly on small grains.
Okay.
As we eliminated some other things in the past, so we're mostly small grains.
Okay.
The beauty of that is the small grains, they don't do well in the heat. And so after a while, once they've done their job, the idea is to get that seedling off to a good start. A little bit of competition is good, but unlike weed competition, which can be overwhelming, the nurse crop just assists, it nurses it along. And then as the temperature builds, or in the case of hemp, as it shades it out, it just goes away. So what you're left with is only hemp, and you don't have any weeds underneath. Nice. So without any herbicides for hemp being labeled for the hemp crop, this nurse crop concept is pretty powerful, and that's something to see.
Okay, good. Yeah, and then that'll all be on display at the field day on August 16th and 17th.
Yes.
Yeah, and so your farm is in Christiana, which is in Lancaster County. I don't know if you can mention the street address so people can have that, but I'll also put it on the website.
Street address is 6321 White Oak Road, Christiana, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And I myself was out at your farm, I think back in September of 2020, and it's just a beautiful space, and I think people are really going to enjoy themselves there.
Yeah, just call me and let me know if you're coming, because I really want to welcome you personally.
Okay, great. Cool. Well, Tim and Sarah, it's great to talk to you today, and I will see you at the field day too.
Great. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right, so be sure to check out kingsagriseeds.com to learn more about the field day coming up in August. And like I said, I'll be there. I think I'm going to be there on Wednesday, August 17th. All right, and so this next interview kind of exemplifies why I love my job so much. In this case, I get to talk to a builder about the use of language, right? Where else do you find something like this than on the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast? Segue Fischlin, welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago on the sponsor message on the show, I mentioned a project that you're working on with Amerishawn Cast Hemp. That's Cameron McIntosh's Hempcrete business, and he's working with you on a Hempcrete workshop out there in the Puget Sound area of Washington. And so through some conversations with you, you ended up listening to that episode that I published, with the announcement about your event, and you, I think, found it interesting in many ways, and you wanted to talk about a few things today. So welcome to the show, and I wonder if you could just give us a quick introduction, and then we'll get into some of your concerns.
Sure. Hi, my name is Segue Fischlin, and I'm coming into this as I'm acting GC for my own house build out here in Puget Sound on the Kitsap Peninsula. And so I have always been passionate about eco-building since my teen years. I have almost 2 decades of experience with drawing up building plans and preparing permits for business and residential purposes. And so I took my skill set and turned it into designing and permitting and building my own Hempcrete house out here. And so as I was digging deeper into that, how to build Hempcrete house, the details, I learned many things.
Okay, so we'll talk about the Hempcrete house in a little bit and the workshop that you're having around that. But tell me, so you listened to the episode, it was one a few weeks ago. I think it was the one devoid of music. There was a conversation with an economist who was talking about big cannabis, sort of like miseducating regulators and costing the grain and fiber industry billions of dollars. And there was also an interview with a video game maker who was making some kind of video game about hemp. And I will say there was an interview with a really nice farmer from Illinois named Rachel Berry, who I don't think you had any issue with her, but you had some issues with the topic of conversation with the other two. So can we start there?
Yeah, so it wasn't exactly the topic conversation per se. It was the language that they used around the topics of conversation. I also have a journalism degree. So even though I have been using my architectural talents, interests, passions, and skills for the last 20 years, my foundation is mainly in language, major in English and a minor in French. And so I really listened to words and language. And I found it interesting that I felt that some of what the first two speakers were talking about and their intentions seemed to be good, and that they really wanted to help grow the industrial hemp industry, because this is an industrial hemp podcast, but that some of their languaging seemed to be maybe either intentionally or unintentionally undermining the ultimate goal by using imprecise language in a way that could be damaging to the free growth of the industrial, or maximum free growth of the industrial hemp industry. Okay. So I think that's mainly what I want to talk about today, is bringing a focus back to the essential aspect of languaging around this industry and how it could be hurting the industry.
All right. Can you first, give me an example of maybe some of the language that they were using that you think was intentionally or unintentionally undermining the industry?
Yeah, so I don't remember all the super fine details, but I think I recall both The Economist and the video game designer using literally the entire term industrial hemp, so not just hemp, but industrial hemp, in reference to either medicinal cannabis or medicinal and recreational cannabis. And then more specifically, one or both of them lightly or heavily touched on Delta 8, which is a form of THC that is under a technicality of being legal under the Farm Bill because it isn't specifically defined as Delta 9 THC, which is the currently recognized compound that gets you high that is regulated out of the Farm Bill. So I found a sort of a languaging around products that either heal you or get you high being lumped in as industrial hemp with products that you wear or that you eat or that you build houses out of, for example, and many other uses, of course.
So you're saying like Delta 8 should in no way ever be called industrial hemp?
No, I think it's crazy. And here's why. Really what you've got is three major industries. You've got your recreational industry, which is, above 0.3% THC. That's fine, right? You've got your medicinal industry, which is perfectly happy being under 0.3% THC because their main focus is CBD and all of the other amazing magical compounds in this incredible cannabis plant. And then you have your industrial use, which is industrial hemp. And that is really the most correct term to attach industrial to hemp, whereas really recreational medicinal really are better defined as cannabis, in that hemp historically for thousands of years has only been referring to hemp fiber plant with the long fibers and the woody stalks that are later used for other things like building houses now. And then, but the truth is they're all derivatives of cannabis. However, the misuse is coming out of the desire for the medicinal and now the recreational Delta 8 people wanting to hide under the umbrella of the legal permission given by the Farm Bill, which is defining hemp with under 0.3% THC as legal. So now everybody wants to have their product called hemp, as long as they can kind of wiggle it in under that Farm Bill somehow. The problem is, of course, it's, causing a misunderstanding of industrial hemp. I think a growing mistrust in certain places in the country with policymakers and perception of the general public who are not super knowledgeable about the industry is that we're back to square one. Oh, industrial hemp can get you high. Industrial hemp can do all these other things. Industrial hemp isn't really about making clothes and seeds to eat and building houses. They just want to get you high. They just want to grow their Delta 8 hemp, industrial hemp, and get you high. And they're really just smarmy drug dealers. So I think that's where things are kind of going. And it's really unfortunate because ultimately that is going to undermine industrial hemp more than The Economist is arguing big cannabis. Right. I think that we can do more damage to our own cause with people on our side who are using languaging like that than any supposedly opposing industry that is investing in, undermining or manipulating the situation. So let me explain how I really learned this distinction myself through my own story, and that is through the process of building this house. Early on, I was speaking with Ty Olson, who many of you people may know from American Lime Technology, who knows quite a lot about lime and quite a lot about Hempcrete. And I was asking, I want to save money, right? I'm trying to build a house. Well, I was like, where can I get the hemp hurd, the hemp shiv, the material, the woody material I'm going to use? I said, can I get it from locally from the West Coast here? There's a lot of CBD growers. And he's like, well, it's not great. And I was like, well, why? And so this is how I got into learning about it, is that he's like, you really need to get your hurd from an industrial hemp producer. He said, it's not going to be optimal to build your house, invest all this money into building these walls with a CBD derivative. Not to say it's impossible, but it's not optimal. So I'm like, okay. So I started to look into that. What is the difference? Why do I need industrial hemp? So that's how I came around to it, is from listening to experts in the hempcrete industry. And so this is what I learned. First of all, industrial hemp is always a sativa. It's always cannabis sativa, whereas cannabis used for CBD or recreation, so medicinal, I should say, open it up, medicinal purposes or recreational purposes, can be of the sativa variety, the indica variety, or the ruderalis variety. Okay. So it's different. Not only that, and that was leafly.com. I got that distinction. And then from highgradehempseed.com, industrial hemp versus hemp, the key differences, some of the primary differences between industrial hemp and CBD hemp are related to the ways the plants actually grow. Because industrial hemp is grown for fibers and CBD hemp is grown for flowers, which I would prefer that term to be cannabis, right? But they're calling it hemp because of the Farm Bill, okay? The plants diverge in their cultivation methods and overall growth patterns. As hemp stalks are extremely hardy, industrial hemp is grown with methods and equipment taken from commercial farming. Conversely, because CBD flowers are quite delicate, CBD hemp plants must be grown in more specific environments. Industrial hemp plants grow generally very tall with singular stalks, while CBD hemp plants grow bushy with many stalks. That answers my question as why Ty Olson's like, no, CBD hemp is not, or CBD cannabis plants are not ideal for my use for construction. So this is how I came around. So I wanted to show that. However, because of this the legal pressure of the Farm Bill, if you go to Wikipedia for hemp, in the very first paragraph, they're already referring to hemp or industrial hemp. Literally, they see them as synonyms in Wikipedia. It is a botanical class of cannabis sativa cultivars grown specifically for industrial or medicinal use. So that's already not even correct, because medicinal cannabis can be other than sativa. So you see already how it's incorrect. It's been added on. But then if you go all the way through the rest of the page on hemp, there's no other use that I saw of a mention of medicinal uses of hemp. So it's literally just, it seems to be a retroactive attempt to, and really the Farm Bill, as wonderful and magical as it is imperfect, right? And so we have a desire to be protected. The medicinal growers are quite interested in keeping the THC low. They're fine with that because they are achieving a different goal. But they feel like they can't call it cannabis because they don't want to be considered illegal and lose their industry.
Right. So it's like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square, right? So industrial hemp is hemp, but not all hemp is industrial hemp.
Well, that's what the Farm Bill has turned it into. However, traditionally, hemp has never been in use. Basically, until the Farm Bill, you would never call a cannabis for medicinal use hemp. It's cannabis. It's not even correct. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so like I think back to like apothecary days when they would sell little bottles of, cannabis oil for, various uses before it was made illegal. And yeah, it was never labeled as hemp on those little bottles. It was always cannabis. That's just what it was called. Yeah.
Because the stereotype is that hemp gives you a headache. Why would you want to put it in your body, like everyone thought of as hemp. Well, that's, smoking hemp, it's going to give you a headache. Like that didn't seem appealing to anyone as something you would want to consume.
But now people do. They do smoke, like there's smokable CBD flowers, which when I started this podcast, a few years ago, I never even considered that. And I thought it was sort of crazy when I heard people talking about, smokable CBD flowers. But now there's a whole industry that has grown up around it.
So I guess there's just one final point I wanted to make on the subject.
Yeah, go for it.
And that is that what would be optimal is now that the CBD growers and the industry has matured considerably in the last 4 years. I mean, there's just been extraordinary growth. What would be ideal for everybody concerned is if this languaging is acknowledged and corrected, and that the CBD growers actually step up and get recognized as a distinct form, as distinct from industrial hemp, meaning they can still be legal because they're still doing the right things. But it would be more ideal if they were called medicinal cannabis to heal people, rather than hemp, because it just confuses everybody, and it's actively undermining the growth of the industrial hemp industry, which this world needs so desperately, as much as the medicinal use. But the medicinal is zooming along at full speed, and it's going great, but it's hurting the industrial hemp industry, in my opinion, because of this problem with languaging and the misunderstandings it's causing among people who are not specialists in these subject matters.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of great points, and I think you've given much food for thought here for folks in the industry. Words matter, definitions matter. So thank you for bringing that to us. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for allowing me to share these insights, despite the fact I'm not like an expert grower or whatever. I'm just a builder. And I guess the last thing I want to say is, hey, everybody, come to my workshop or tell somebody who's interested, come to the workshop. So if you know anyone who wants hands-on experience building a real, permitted, legal house on the edge of a town in Bremerton, in Kitsap Peninsula called Bremerton, and want to learn how to do it right from Cameron. And we're going to be, in this case, in order to get good quality, because this is not a cheap house, we're actually importing building grade certified herd from France. So you'd also be learning what is supposed to look like. So if you ever want to do your own project, that that you're getting a good quality of product. And so come learn hands-on how to build a house with us in terms of casting the Hempcrete in place.
Are you casting it in place, or is he going to do the spray applied method?
We're doing cast in place because I think he and I agree that that's the best way to learn when it's your first time.
Okay.
And that also, I think it's just going to be a friendlier, funner way to work as a group. And it's not a huge house, so I don't think it's really going to change the amount of time it takes to build it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when is this workshop, and where can people learn more about it?
So it's September 7th through 11th this year. So right after Labor Day weekend, starting on a Wednesday, going into Sunday. It's a 4.5-day workshop where Wednesday night is sort of an introductory sit down with Cameron, sort of introduction to Hempcrete. And then we really start getting our hands dirty Thursday morning. I'm aware that some people have busy schedules and they can't make it for 4.5 days. And so those people have an option to watch the video ahead of time of that talk and then show up getting ready to get their hands dirty immediately on Saturday morning, and then go through all day Saturday and Sunday. And then Saturday night, we're going to have a community barbecue where not just participants, but their friends or family are welcome to come and see what they're working on.
Okay.
And so then that'll be open to more people and be a little bit of a little bit of a party. So
Cool.
it'll be fun.
Is there a fee associated with the workshop?
Yes, there is a fee, and that's going to be on that's on the webpage. There is also an opportunity to sign up under the early bird umbrella. So there'll be a lower fee up until I'm about to update the website in the next 24 hours to include the early bird discount. So if you don't see it right away, just watch for it. And then that means that if you sign up before August 15th, that you can get in cheaper. And then there's three other ways to lower your cost. One is that I am allowing camping on the site here. So if you don't want to pay for a local hotel and you're okay with roughing it a little bit, there are many facilities here for you. There'll be showers, there'll be water, there's porta potties. So you will have your needs taken care of if you want to stay here and save money that way. Two other ways to save money. One is volunteer opportunities during the event where you're helping with, let's say, the chef to prep food, or you're helping Cameron set up for the next level of learning and doing. And then the third opportunity to save money is to actually stay after the workshop is over. Cameron has said we probably won't finish the whole house in 4 days. So he said you really should, expect to be working for several more weeks. At that point, you are a trained, skilled hempcrete builder. And as long as I, give you the go ahead, you're welcome to stay on and actually be paid as day labor. And that would come as a credit back to your method of payment. In theory, you could stay long enough, just a few days, and actually pay for the entire workshop and actually walk out of this paying nothing. So if you have that time and you have that luxury, you're welcome to stay on as long as we have the need. And I consider that you've, learned, and Cameron has considered you've learned the skills sufficiently. We would love to have you. We would love to have those extra hands afterwards to keep on going. We're on a roll. Just keep on going and get her done. So.
All right, cool.
I was just going to say, I realized I didn't say the website yet. He's going to have it. You'll have it in the show notes, but it's www.svalrajasthan.net/hempcrete. So you're going to want to just check in his notes because it's,
That's a lot of letters there. Yeah.
Exactly. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think this is great. I think it's an amazing opportunity to learn the skills, learn the craft. But part of me, I'm reminded of, Tom Sawyer and painting the fence kind of thing, where you're like, hey, come be our free labor here.
Well, it's okay, because the reason why you're coming is because I'm actually flying someone out from Pennsylvania who actually has a lot of experience, and we're going to be using building grade hemp. Right. And so you're actually learning how to do it right. This is just not like a hippie love fest where everybody comes and grabs some mud off the ground and mixes it together and maybe it'll turn out okay, but you don't really know. This is actually, it's costing me a lot to bring Cameron out. And so I have very real costs, not just feeding you, but also very real cost of bringing him out and then bringing quality material in, so that I'm playing a role in helping to keep the industry growing in a true direction towards effectiveness, meaning high standards for what we do and how we do it, and setting a high bar so that as we move forward, people look at the hempcrete constructions, they go, oh my God, that's amazing, and it works, and it's not falling apart, and it's not cracking, and it's not... Right. So I think that's very valuable.
I think it is too. And so I retract my statement, because I get it. You have a ton of expenses going into it. So that makes sense.
A ton of expenses. Yeah. If it was just me and I had a couple of books on how to build a hempcrete house, I wouldn't charge for it, or I wouldn't need to, or maybe it'd be like, $50 a day just to cover food. But yeah, bringing out somebody from the East Coast out to the West Coast, because the honest truth is we don't really have experts around here to teach this right now, but there's a ton of people interested. There's a real passion for it, and a curiosity for it. So
Yep, I've known Cameron for a few years now, and I've been on a handful of his job sites, and I've been to a few of his workshops too. And yeah, he's the best in America at this point as far as Hempcrete installations go. So yeah, you've chosen wisely.
Well, he came recommended from Ty. Originally, Ty was going to come out, but then he started a family. So he went, yeah, I want to stay closer to home for a while. I got a little one.
Well, Cameron has a family too, but he has to feed them, right? So yeah.
He's in a different place in his life.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Playing a different role. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, Segue, this has been great to meet you and to talk to you and to hear your concerns. And I think what you're doing is great. And I really just appreciate your presence in the world and that you were like, hey, I have some things to say to you. And I'm glad you did, because I think you make some really good points. And I think our audience will appreciate that too.
Well, thank you so much for recognizing that and just so openly inviting me to share that in a more public sense than just like a private email. And thank you again for giving me another opportunity to share this incredible workshop. It might be one of the only ones happening this year on the West Coast. So if you know anyone out west that is really eager to learn how to do it right and wants to even be a part of the industry as it grows, or just wants to build their own house, wants to do their own projects, let them know, because these opportunities aren't coming around a whole lot out here right now.
Yeah, it's a special one. So awesome. Well, I wish you the best of luck. And
thank you.
Let's keep in touch, and I look forward to following your success.
All right. Thank you so much, Eric.
All right. How about Segue Fischlin? I know that if I were out there in the Pacific Northwest, I would be going to this workshop. Anyway, I'll have a link to the workshop on the show page for the episode at lancasterfarming.com, along with all the other links that we talked about here. So go to lancasterfarming.com and start clicking on things. All right, so what else? Oh, I'm excited to tell you something. So I don't know if you know this or not. How could you really? But I like to ferment things. I like pickles. I like sauerkraut and, all kinds of stuff. So lately, for Lancaster Farming, I have been making pickle videos that we're sticking on our TikTok channel, right? Who am I? I don't know. But anyway, in the course of making these pickle videos and writing some pickle recipes, I reached out to sort of my fermentation hero, Sander Katz, and he's booked an interview with me. So I know it's not quite industrial hemp, but in a few weeks I'm going to be talking to Mr. Sander Kraut himself. So something to look forward to. If you have any friends who are interested in fermentation, let them know too, because this is a special big deal. All right, so anyway, that's it for me. My name is Eric Herlock. I am the digital editor at Lancaster Farming Newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. Check us out online at lancasterfarming.com. Get yourself a subscription, sign up for our newsletter, all of those things. I appreciate you listening to our show, and if you ever want to get in touch with me, just send an email. Send it to podcast@lancasterfarming.com. I love getting emails from listeners. So, all right, until next time, I'll see you in the newspaper.
Industrial hemp.
Season 2, Episode 29 of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2022 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show was written, recorded, edited, and produced by Eric Herlock. The music you hear throughout the show is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow.